Welcome to English 200 Introduction to Literature. If you're in this class, you're taking it as a general education requirement as part of your degree program. So I like to start by thinking about what literature is and why it's so important that everyone be required to study it. So I think we all have an understanding of what literature is, or at least we figure that we know it when we see it. It's novels and poems, things from other time periods, stories that involve characters and plots and settings, things that are artistic, things that have some specific purposes sometimes. Some stories educate, some stories entertain, and stories that care about the use of language and that use it in an artistic way. And while those sorts of characteristics are certainly useful for helping us to understand what literature is and to identify it, there's also another piece that helps us to realize that literature is very important, and that's the cultural context of literature. In some ways, we can really think about literature as the imagination of a culture. It's where people write stories to work out different possibilities for how people interact with each other, how conflicts are dealt with, or even just imagining completely different types of lives or types of events that couldn't even happen in real life. And this cultural imagination has been important in lots of ways. For texts that were written in earlier time periods, they're almost like little time capsules that can help us today understand what the cultural discourse of a different period, different time period was like. And imaginative texts, literary texts, are the only kind of writing that really help us put into words emotions and perceptions that can't otherwise be understood. So in this class, we think about literature in that way as a really significant form of cultural communication, as well as an important artistic artifact in and of itself. Learning to read literature, which is not designed to be easy to read, can really help you to improve your critical thinking and critical reading skills. Those are skills that are applicable to all sorts of courses that you're going to take throughout your program. Understanding that interaction between literature and culture is equally important, because that helps us to understand some fundamental things about humanity and about what it's like to interact with other people, and some ways that communication between people is really important. As we get started in the course, keep in mind that notion of literature as an intentional artistic use of language for a specific purpose, our dictionary definition that we're providing. But also remember literature as a cultural conversation and a way to engage with the world through imaginative writing that describes emotion and perception and that captures a cultural moment in really important ways. The other term that I'd like to cover as we start off the course is the idea of the canon, C-A-N-O-N. So the canon is just that collection of works that are considered important artistic or cultural texts. It's basically the set from which we select the things that we study. That canon has been broadening over especially the past few decades. Originally, it was dominated by those who had access to education and had the privilege to be able to engage in the writing of literary texts. But over time, obviously, especially as we've thought about that idea of cultural importance and not just artistic features, that canon has been broadening to include other voices and more perspectives. And that diversity only enriches our experience in studying literature.